welcome everyone to another episode of Mindset Talk, where we try to break down the process of an entrepreneur who's had success starting their business from scratch and turning it into a profitable business. Today, I'm lucky to have someone who's not only a great personal friend of mine, but he's also someone who started his own business from scratch, right out of his home. He was working another job at the time, and eventually he got to the point where he was able to make the career change, go all in on his business. From knowing him personally, he's one of the most consistent, hardworking people I know, and just really a great human in general. So I'd like to welcome James Bannon from Box Bistro.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you. Great to be here. When you asked me to do it, it was like, this is just kind of reflecting on where you and I both started in our time, just being friends and hanging out and working out. And now we're here and it's a great place to be.
Yeah. Thanks for making the time.
Of course.
It's cool because we kind of both started our businesses at a similar time. Can you give the audience a little background, a little bit about your time as a business owner and kind of where you are now?
Sure. So I own Box Bistro. It's a meal prep company and small bistro storefront in Berlin. It's been about 8 years since I started it, and it's been in different forms that these 8 years. It's changed quite a bit from just an idea kind of thrown around while I was a high school teacher. I spent about a little over 11 years at Branford High School teaching an occupational food service management course where I was teaching the kids how to run a restaurant. We ran a restaurant in the school district and catered for the district, lots of different events. So, it's been an interesting change from being in public education to running my own business, being my own boss, different challenges along the way in both developing my skill set during my teaching years to having the confidence to kind of pull the trigger on the career change. And then where we're at now with all the ups and downs that a lot of business owners have had over the past, few years, 8 years.
Cool. So you were a teacher first, right? Been about 8 years as a business owner. You're in Berlin, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Going back to those early years, what motivated you to make the switch from a secure job being a teacher to starting your own business?
I guess, the first thing I have to identify is the confidence in my skill set, right? Coming from education, you have to be up in front of a lot of people that, and in high school, some want to be there, some don't want to be there, but you have a skill set that you want to teach someone, right? So you have to be confident in that and to be a teacher. And then really in the back of my mind was, I'm teaching these kids how to do this. We had a real world setup where we had a restaurant where the teachers came in and bought our food. And I really wanted to focus on, my vision of what I can do with my skill set and not just, all right, here's what we could do, kids. Let me show you some skills. Let's test out some recipes. Let's try to make some things people want to buy, right?
Yeah.
And in doing that and having a lot of different students, some want to do it, some don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Your vision at the time doesn't always come out as you had hoped, right?
Sure.
Which is fine. That's education, and you kids succeed and trip up along the way. But there was this little spark inside of me that was like, "Wow, what if I did this on my own? Would the outcome be different?" So I wanted to test that, and you in particular had kind of nudged me in that direction because I was talking about it a lot, and
Sure.
you kind of paved the way for modeling the confidence in your skill set to to pursue something that wasn't necessarily secure and certain.
Yeah.
So I still remember us talking about it, like, oh, should I try it at the gym? You know, what
Yeah.
if people like it? What if people don't? And you're
Right.
like, who cares? You know, do it.
Yeah.
You're not going to find out until you try it. So
Yeah.
that was the first domino, you know, in
Yeah.
this progression. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. And you motivated me too, by the way. What was cool is because we were both starting out at the same time, like, whenever you would have a success, it was motivating and helped me confidence wise too. Because I think that confidence piece is a big part of it. But something else you said, you mentioned it a few times, like you didn't just jump into something completely blind. Like you had a transferable skill set and you were, it sounds like, figuring out how you can apply it to the business world. And so it's not something you did, you didn't just change sectors completely. You had a skill set from your experience as a teacher,
Right.
that you could use. Um, so I guess something that's coming to mind is, I feel like a lot of people are in that situation, right? Where they're in a job that maybe they like, maybe it's safe for them, but there's something, like you said, inside of them that kind of makes them want to go try something different or pursue a different path, right? What helped you actually, take that first step? And because you had talked about it a lot, like we all do, right? But what helped you
Yeah.
take that first step to actually, start the baby phase of Box Bistro?
I think it's acknowledging some of the things that I was unhappy with in a career path that, you know, I could put energy into changing, mindset, and thinking like, okay, is that where I want to put my energy? And
Yeah,
I have this desire and I have this fire for, um, improving what I do and, um, kind of dreaming a little bit too, and really letting myself go in that headspace of like, what if?
yeah,
And then and not let it be fleeting, as it comes back, that what if, putting it on paper and really kind of seeing what what would it take, what type of time and energy would it take to do something else, and what does the transition look like. And then so I think letting myself go that extra step and spend some time and energy on that dream that isn't just a fleeting, like, oh, you know what,
yeah,
I'm not really happy here, and not just kind of going to this fantasy in my head of, you know could it be better somewhere else? Well, maybe if I put my energy in that direction and I can make it something great, you know. And in my current situation, teaching, um, as a teacher, you put a lot of energy into that, and it does well or it doesn't, and classes change, and it had been a significant amount of time, and I was like, maybe I should give um, this other thing some time and energy.
yeah,
And in doing that, it sparked this fire
yeah,
and this passion about, I know I can do this, because you and I both know we both have such a great work ethic, and we can figure out solutions for things, and it almost gets us a rise out of, like, wow, bring it on,
yeah.
we can do this, we can figure out a solution for it. So I was getting that from this new idea of,
Mhm.
wow, I'm safe in this teaching world where it's very predictable, and this
Yeah.
succession of career is spelled out. Um, and there was that spark, that just to acknowledge it, and kind of see what it would take to go there and build it. Just kind of set a fire, and then we went with it.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I heard you say that I think are really important. One, when you had this is something you were thinking about for a while, but you didn't just allow it to be thoughts. You actually took action on the thoughts, right? And
Yeah.
it wasn't in terms of starting a business from the first time the thought went in your head, but you started brainstorming it and writing it out and planning out what it would look like and allowing yourself to give it space, right? Versus
Hmm.
just thinking and thinking and thinking and getting stuck in a wheel. So you took some action early, which I think is huge, and you got some momentum. And then also, it seems like you liked the challenge of the process. I think we've always talked about that in the past, like having something to work on that you can, whether you're going up or down, the fact that you can work on it and get in there with your hands and try to make it better, like that
Yeah.
sounds like it was appealing for you and helped you kind of take those first steps in the early years too. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And focusing on the what if positivity, what if I put this energy into it? What if I'm able to put all my energy into this? The good outcomes of that. And then, you want to be realistic as to what the bad things in rolling the dice
Sure, of course.
could
Yeah.
be. But the thoughts that come through there that are negative, that are telling you, no, don't do this, or um, I think I figured out a way to kind of filter out. Um, I guess the thoughts that would hold you back from taking this step would be ones of doubt, right? Not necessarily like, oh, it's going to be hard. Oh, there's going to be challenges,
Right.
versus like, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough for, people to like the food I'm going to make,
Right.
or, you know, teaching's different from the real world business, not
Yes. Yeah.
having been a business owner, that was more of the kind of build the plane as we're flying type of thing, not coming from that world. Um, so that that was the challenge,
Yeah.
but it wasn't me doubting my skill set. I'm like, I have something, I can work with this. I've have all these years of, um, you know, developing my craft, and I think the confidence in believing myself and believing those dreams and projections of what I think I could do, acknowledging that and not focusing on the like, ugh, I don't know if I'm good enough.
Right. And it's human nature. It's the way our brain works to try to protect us. So we're always going to
Right.
have those thoughts in the back of our mind. What what helped you? Because it takes a certain level of confidence, as you've said, or almost like blind faith, where like, yeah, you're seeing it happen, you believe in your skill set. Was it just that, or what helped you believe in the plan in the early days? Was there anything specific you did or remember going through that helped you
Um,
believe?
well, it's definitely opportunities that come along. So, you know, working out, being a coach in the CrossFit setting,
Yep.
um, there there was the need for what I thought I could build my business around. So basically, being a coach, having the skill set to provide for a need, that's kind of where entrepreneurship is kind of born. It's like, I can do this, I can fix that problem that people will pay for and appreciate.
Yep.
So there was that, and the opportunity that the gym owner then was like, hey, we need this, if you want to try this, go for it.
Right.
And at that point it was like, all right, what's stopping me, right? I didn't have to go door knocking. It was right there,
Yeah.
the platform to try, this meal prep service specific to athletes in the gym and people, concerned with their fitness goals. So, taking advantage of the opportunity that's in front of you. Um, and then, as much as I can say now, like, pushing those thoughts to the side of like, oh, I can't do this,
Yeah.
having a spouse, my wife to support me and saying like, and friends,
Yep.
like I mentioned you, um, to kind of be like, hey, you know, come back down to real life here. This isn't a total fantasy of like,
Yeah.
yes, I can do it or I can't do it. Like you have the skill set here and like try it. And even if you fail, you
Yeah.
tried.
And then, and like you said at the beginning, you don't know unless you get in there and do it. So, no, that's a good point. So, a couple things there that, because again, some really good stuff. First, you had the opportunity, but kudos to you because I think a lot of us have opportunities, but we don't know. Again, we don't always take the action. So the
Mm,
opportunity was there, and then you took the action on it too. And then the environment's huge because again, it's even today. There's always days where maybe doubt what you're doing or
yeah,
things didn't go the way you planned, and having that support system, whether it's family,
yeah,
friends, coworkers, right? Some combination of them all is
right,
just super important in the beginning and
yeah,
even today. Um, but I also think the way you did everything was super, and I don't know if this was intentional, but it was very strategic and patient. And I really think you set yourself up for success in the beginning because initially you started out of your home, essentially. Is that
yeah,
right?
yep. We kind of tested it by just making a few things that my wife and I are both athletes, and um, we eat a certain way, and that's normal for us. But a lot of the conversations I had with the people I was working out with is that they don't have time to cook for themselves or eat kind of in the more clean realm. Um, so we're like, what if we kind of do some of the things that we enjoy and put it in the fridge and see if some people like it. And starting it, even that first day, my wife will tell you that I was probably the most nervous as she's ever seen me, and
Yeah.
most lack of self-confidence,
Yeah.
after I pulled the trigger, put
Yeah.
the meals in there, and it was out there, it was in the world, and she looked at me falling apart in front of her like,
Yeah.
no one's gonna buy my
Yeah.
stuff, no one's gonna, what if they don't like it? But
Yep.
so all of that confidence that got me to the point to pull the trigger,
Yep.
it was like this breath of like, okay, I did it.
Yep.
But what if,
And
so
now
all
you're in
the
this.
the flood of, that came through, and of course that you know didn't come to a reality with
Right.
that people didn't like it. They did, and every week, I got fueled by, okay, we did 30 meals this week, so now let's throw 40 in there and see if they go. And so kind of those baby steps of the volume of what I was doing and the amount of time I was doing, because I was doing it, in addition to teaching then. And it was a nice side thing. And it got to the point where it was like, okay, this is something that has grown to the point where, I need a licensed kitchen. I need to set my LLC up and
Yeah.
really figure out how to do this legitimately and not just like this little test run. So I started renting a kitchen at a church, local, where they had like a daycare. So they were, permitted for food service. So I went and got mine through them and cooked out of the church once a week,
Yep.
and that was huge. I was like, oh, I'm doing this. This is great.
Yep.
Um, did that for about a year, and the volume of food we were doing out of that kitchen was quite a bit. And it came to a point where it was a nice thing in addition to teaching, but it wasn't the volume it needed to be to totally replace, my income as a teacher.
Sure. Yeah.
So again, another opportunity. At that point, um, there was actually a major kind of bump in the road or a turning point and crossroads, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I had wanted to get back into playing rugby again, right? It had been quite a bit of time since I had done that. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sign up with this over 35 team, right?
Yep.
And I was looking forward to it. It was the springtime, just turned 35, so I'm gonna be the young one out there. I'm gonna show these guys, right? And I remember getting an email from my um, college saying that there was going to be an alumni game maybe a couple weeks before this club, started. So I'm like, oh, perfect. Great way to get the cobwebs out.
Yep.
So I went to that. Of course, none of my buddies that were from the years I played were there. So I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm just going
Yeah.
to
Have some
play,
fun. Yeah.
have some fun. It's like the first 5 minutes, somebody falls on me weird, and I break my foot in like 4 or 5 different places. And trying to be a hero, you think, oh, this is just, whatever. You play the rest of the half, adrenaline comes down. I'm like, oh no, something's really bad here.
Yep.
So got the foot checked out. It's broken. So that stopped, right? The sports thing was like, you know what? That stopped me in my tracks.
Yep.
I was still working out on a knee scooter in the gym and whatever. That didn't stop me, but I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, rugby's done for now.
Yeah.
I got to focus on if I'm continuing this career change or not. And it was kind of a wake up call. I had a fleeting thought of, okay, this is a sign. This is too much, right? You're
Yeah.
trying to change your career. You're trying to add this extracurricular thing. I got 2 kids at the time, and I'm like, is this too much? Do I need to stop this? And at that point, I couldn't drive to Brantford because it was my right foot that was broken. I couldn't drive. I was in this big cast. So I was going to be off for May and June, right into the summer.
Yep.
And as soon as that thought of it was too much, I had this flash in my mind of like, wait a minute, this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
I can focus all this time on my business plan and how to really, really go full in on it.
Yeah.
Because before it was like, I'm cooking on the weekend. I still have all this prep to do for teaching. Like, how am I really going to spend this time where you've got kids, you want to do all the things with them after work, and you're trying to build a business on top of
Yeah.
that. you know, Maybe not breaking my foot, I wouldn't be here. But
Yeah.
so I saw it as an opportunity to focus on that. I healed up, and with that business plan kind of a little more solid, had some time over the summer to help my buddy marching out, right, redoing bathrooms and
Yeah.
kitchens, and I had an opportunity with him to stay with him and work with him in between when I was cooking. So this was another opportunity to say, okay, I can use another skill set that I haven't really explored, which is, I'm good with my hands in different
Yeah.
trades. So can I, fill the gap with working with him and developing my business at the same time? And that was another opportunity that presented itself that made sense towards my goal that I was really, really aiming for and putting a lot of energy into.
Yeah. So that there's a lot there, a lot of good stuff there. The first part, as you were breaking down your steps, which I think is so helpful for people to hear, because what kept coming in my mind as you were sharing that early part of your story was you had this balance, it sounded like, of being confident in your skills and what you can do, but also patience, because
Mm,
the way you started this business, you didn't just jump in and open a storefront and buy a bunch of product and swamp yourself with overhead and bury yourself,
right.
right? Just because you were confident in your skill. You were very strategic. You started out of your house, you kept your costs down, right? If it didn't
Yeah.
work, okay, you were still you were protected, right? And then
Right.
you made the once you had some traction, then you went to the church, right?
Yeah.
And then you continued to build off there, which I'll ask you about in a second. But the other piece was how you framed. I love how you shared that about your foot and how you framed it, because really it's a choice. You could have chose to look at that
Yeah.
either way. You could have said, this is a sign. And it was a sign, right? One, however you want to look, it was either a sign for you to stop or you changed your frame. This was a sign for me to go all in and
Yeah.
really see how I can grow this. So I think that's a powerful, how we look at the same event is super important. So I'm glad you shared that. What was the next step after the church? Because I love how strategic and, like I said, patient you were in this to kind of
Yeah.
set yourself up for success. What after the church? You blew up out of your home. You got into the church. You started cranking in there. What was the next step after that?
So we were reaching capacity at the church as like a 1-day cook, right?
Yeah,
And I really wanted a place where I can cook 24/7, right? And it was $50 a week to rent this church space, which
yeah,
was, I can go in after 10 o'clock, on a Sunday, and the place
yeah,
was mine, which is great. Um, but I said, you know what? For this to take the next step, I need to have a place that I can go in and call mine and be there all the time. And I did the numbers. I said at the what we're grossing right now with our weekly sales out of the church, we could float a rental, right? And that would also build a platform for being able to do more volume. So I found a place in Berlin down the street from where we are right now, that was for lease, and super excited about it. 10
yeah,
minutes from home, and then I talked to the landlord about it, and terms were good. It's 3-year lease. Rent was within our budget,
yep,
and then when I went to visit it, the place that was going out of business was a meal prep company, believe it or not. And that kind of spooked me, where I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. This isn't succeeding for them in the same location, but it wasn't the same model. It wasn't the same product. Um, and that didn't hold me back. There was a lot of reservations in, thinking about, okay, this is a big step. This is a 3-year lease. So that location too needed some work. So we put a little bit of money into that to fix it up and to get going there. But like you said, there wasn't a lot of overhead in that. I mean, signing the lease was a big thing because you're tied
right,
to that rent, and all the other expenses that come with it. You need dumpsters, you need it's the electric and the gas and all the things. So really tried to dial in what our projections were and what we could do there. And the first year was great. We brought in employees, right? Now I
yeah,
was a boss,
yeah,
which opened a whole nother world of mindset, uh, hoops to jump through,
yeah,
right? That I have never experienced before. And I managed high school kids, so
sure,
it was different. We had talked about, like, with employees, if it doesn't work out, then you can fire and hire and all that. And
yep,
with students, you have them all year. So I had this experience of working with a range of um, different mindsets, right? Some kids come in high school, they don't want to be there, but they're there and you have to keep them engaged and whatnot. And
yep,
I think that's one thing that took me a little while to kind of get that mindset out, to have a better one, to be more productive and to have the right staff on. Because I think I maybe held some people that weren't a good fit too long, thinking like, okay, I gotta deal with this person. I have to deal with their shortcomings or whatever. And
yep,
but yeah, no, it's that jump opened up a whole nother world for my mind to go. What could we do? Like,
yeah,
we're a meal prep company that you can only order through online, and now we have the opportunity to have a storefront. have a physical location people can come in and just stop in day of. So that opened up a whole nother arm of the business, which now jumping, far forward, that's our strongest point now is having the physical store for people to come in and having all the things that have changed the game in meal prep with, COVID shutting down our main source of orders, the gyms, right?
Yeah.
We had to kind of pivot there. But having the storefront full time was a huge step. And within a year of opening the store, we were looking at places because we had outgrown that spot.
Storefront. Right.
Yeah.
And that's where you are today, correct? You're at your
Right.
next
So
location.
the place we are now, I had heard about through a customer who was a commercial real estate agent, and she kept saying to me, "Hey, I know you're gonna outgrow this place. I see this place busy all the time.
Yeah.
I've got this guy down the street. You really got to check out his kitchen. He's ready to retire." I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah. I don't know. We're doing fine here. Everything makes sense with the numbers, but it's absolutely craziness trying to operate in that space. We're at max capacity.
Yeah.
Our walk-in cooler is totally full. We're bumping elbows the whole time, but we're efficient and it works,
Yeah.
right? And all the problems that are coming up, I'm feeling like I'm maybe not knocking them out of the park, but I'm doing well with them.
Yeah.
So we definitely needed that. So that was that opportunity where I was like, okay, I can't just disregard this. Let me check it out. And the place is a great spot for us. The kitchen's huge. The ability to grow even more was there. And we had the opportunity and the ability to purchase the building, which was a huge step for our company and the assets we've built. Not just our reputation. Now we're accumulating real value for our business.
Sure.
So we bought the building with an SBA loan. We were able to create a couple more positions for people to cook out of this like commissary kitchen we purchased it for, with no real intentions to have the storefront there. Our parking was much better at the other place. We still had probably a year and a half left on our lease in our original spot, and everything was working fine. So we're like, okay, we're just going to buy this for a commissary. We're going to produce everything here in bulk, supply our storefront, and everything was going great until kind of COVID came along and rocked our boat a bit. Which it sounds crazy of speaking about it in past tense now, because it feels and has felt so real and everyday kind of struggle survival mode for a while. And now we're not there. We're definitely in a much better place we were than kind of a year after things really got shaken up. But yeah, lots changed.
Well, I think that's a testament to, again, how you've positioned yourself with each step of the way. Like every move, it's a great example of, you call them these opportunities, but it's also your mindset, things you were looking for, and the opportunities present themselves. It's a great combination of you not being afraid to take those actions, take on those opportunities, but knowing that if they didn't work, the way you had positioned yourself up until that point, you were always still in a good place, right? You weren't overextended, so to speak, which I think, is something that even successful businesses have trouble with. Like things are going really well, and then all of a sudden you get a false sense of confidence, or it's a very fine line, right? So I think that's huge because, your industry of all the industries was probably hit the hardest or one of the hardest during COVID, with the cost of food going up and, less people coming into your location and everything like that. And for you to make it through that, I think is a testament to, how you set yourself up from the beginning and ran your business. I know we're starting to run out of time. I do have a few more questions if you have a minute.
Yeah, of course.
One of them is, obviously you've shared how much thought and time you've put into your business, but I also know how important, and you've touched on a little bit too, your family is to you.
Yeah.
You know, you have a great wife, three great boys. They're all active in sports and activities. What helps you balance everything you have going on in your business with all the other important things that you're working on at home with your family as well?
So my biggest thing with trying to check all the boxes for the day is make sure that I'm really conscious about what boxes do I want to check.
Mm,
You know, I can get caught up in a project like anybody and be super focused on that and how do I put all my energy into it, and then other things get backburnered, right?
yep.
And one of the things that I try to tell myself, and it's just become natural now, is um, I need to be present.
Mm,
I mean, it sounds so simple, but when I'm home and my kids are asking me to play in the driveway,
yeah.
that's the opportunity there, you know. So, to work extra and be at the restaurant longer, there's going to be so many boxes to check. And when I leave there, I'll have more boxes checked at work. But if I get home and it's bedtime, my little guy's like, okay, let's read books. But, I really wanted to have a catch. You could check the box for reading them books and getting them to bed. But, there's other opportunities there that, if not physically there, um, then they're not going to get checked.
Yeah.
And on top of that, even if I'm there and I'm super focused on this career change, if I'm not there, mentally, um, I'm not seeing those opportunities to check those boxes with them,
Yeah.
as well. So, yeah, being present for it, because there's so much. And when I try to think sometimes about what I want to get done during the day, it can be overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
Um, I want to steer the ship. I want to make noticeable progress with all the different things.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes if I get I kind of flip back and forth on making lists and then just kind of seeing where the day takes me and having good intentions and
Yeah.
knowing that when I'm at work, it's going to be very clear what needs to happen next. But then kind of going back and forth with that perspective.
Sure.
Um, but really knowing when to shut it down with work and knowing when I'm there and I'm present for family and um, prioritizing that, because the perspective with having kids that are 16, 13, and 6, that age gap there, has spoken very loudly to me. Like with my older boys, the things I'm doing with my 6-year-old, that's not the same. It's that a lot of that stuff is gone. So you
Right.
appreciate the younger stuff more, and maybe bedtime's not as rigid with the time he's going to bed. We do an extra book. We
Yeah.
drag it out because we're just snuggling in the chair,
Yeah.
just enjoying that. And then the older boys, knowing that maybe, I missed some things with the older boys, or maybe took a little different approach with. Now, that hones me into what the older boys need now and how much
Yeah.
time they need, and
Yeah.
it being different. My 16-year-old is learning how to drive. So, that's stressful,
Yeah.
as a parent and and a kid, and taking those opportunities to really show them how to do it, because there's driver's ed, and I can sign somebody else up to
Sure.
do it with him, and they're professionals and they're going to do a great job of it.
Yeah.
But to have that time with him to kind of see where he's at now, and to have those honest conversations about, he had a moment where it was like, I'm too young for this.
Yeah.
I'm not, this is
Yeah.
adult stuff. And to have that conversation with him is golden versus let somebody else,
Right.
teach him how to do that.
Right. You had a
And
real
I'm not,
life. you had a real life moment there
Right.
versus like something that's, not about learning driving necessarily, but a life moment that you're happy to be there for. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, man, it's right. No one has the perfect magic pill, but having an awareness of, like you said, being intentional, I think is
Yeah.
huge. When you're at work, you do your best to focus on what's at work, and there's always going to be life that sometimes creeps in, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing at home. There's going to be days where I'm sure you're trying to be intentional, but stuff is just from the work days, it's overflowing a bit, right? We all have those
Yeah.
days, but without some level of awareness and some level of intention and, like you said, presence, I don't think you have a chance. So
Right.
I think you really said that in a good way. And for you, it also sounds like you have an extra appreciation because your gap in children. It's
Yeah.
with your youngest. It really makes you appreciate things even to maybe to another level, because of you see how fleeting it is.
Right.
We all do as parents, but
Sure.
when you got a little one like that, I can imagine how it opened your eyes even a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool,
Yeah.
man.
So yeah. Yeah, it's all good stuff, like you said, stuff creeps in. I I think what has helped me, and I know maybe you too, because I
Yeah.
see it, and I try to model myself in my approaches to things like you do, by introducing more and more discipline into my daily life,
That's a good point.
right?
Yeah,
Because you know the discipline echoes the self-confidence, I think, in that we kind of acquire, right?
yeah,
um it's kind of that extra thought, or that extra reassurance that if I hold to what I know, provides results or comfort in a good way, um everything's going to be all right,
yeah,
you know um So when those times come where, it kind of rocks us a bit, and tests our stability in certain things, when the voice isn't there of your own confidence, the discipline of sticking to something, kind of is there, in a way where, um, as I'm trying to teach my oldest about discipline and about doing the things
yeah,
that will help your future self. um, it's a lesson sometimes maybe I take for granted, because you know I was modeled that, and I took to that, and my
yeah,
13-year-old takes to that, and
yeah,
he's very, that's in his blood and in his regimen and
yeah,
everything. And yeah, I think, kind of reflecting on my 16-year-old and what his experience has been, and what his skill set is now, and the opportunities I want him to have. It's very different than when I was growing up, and what I was modeled and what I kind of absorbed. So I guess the family time too for me is trying to also, like, recognize that how I operate is it is forming a, something for my kids to absorb, and I know a lot of us as parents are very conscious of that.
yeah.
um so you know
Yeah,
it's
I think the modeling piece is huge to be aware of because that's how a lot of us learn best is like what we're seeing, especially kids. So I love what you said about the discipline and how it's almost like how you look at. I don't know who said this. How you look at one thing or how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So when you're doing these little discipline habits you have in your day, whether it's planning your day out in the morning or writing down your goals for the day or going to the gym or whatever it is, whatever your rituals are, when you train yourself that you do what you say you're going to do, then your body just starts to react that way. Like you said, when these challenges come up or you have to do
yeah.
hard things throughout the day, you just do them because that's how you do everything, right? So I think that's a really good point you touched on. I wanted to have you on for two reasons. one, I knew there was a lot we can learn from, and I'm really glad you shared what you did. I think it really puts perspective on the process and helps a lot of people. The second thing, though, I've always believed that health, nutrition is crucial. I mean, it's crucial for everyone, but especially entrepreneurs, right? Our
Mhm.
energy, the energy we have, our ability to focus for that day, a lot of times is the difference between moving our business forward or backwards.
Right.
So, what types of meals or services do you have that make eating healthy, good nutrition convenient for whether you're a busy professional or family, have a big family, you want to eat healthy, you want to eat better, but you don't have time. What types of ways do you help with that now?
So we've got a couple different ways you can access the service. You could, if you're the type of person that's planning ahead, and you want to look at our menu and say, okay, next week I want to make sure all my lunches are covered or my dinners, or I want to have a couple family style portions of things for my family on those busy nights where there's lots of sports or you have evening meetings, or you just want to know you have time to dedicate to the gym and not have to go grocery shop and cook and clean up. So you could order ahead on our meal prep menu that we post about a week ahead, right?
Cool.
And we've got a lot of different options so that you're not sick of the same old thing, because sometimes and a lot of people meal prep for themselves to save some money,
Right.
and to be efficient with their week. Um, and some of the times, when you're buying groceries and you want to save a little money, you have to buy it in bulk, and then you're eating the same thing over and over again. You get tired of it, and then you're like, okay, that's not working for me. I'm going to go for the convenience, quick thing. Or you just give up on prepping ahead, and you have to, you know, get something on the fly, right? And
Yep.
there's not a whole lot of options on the fly that are going to really progress you towards your wellness goals. And one of the things that we do, our portioning is really good. Um, our macros are balanced, and everything we make is from scratch. And we produce things without the intention of preserving them for a long time. You get it fresh, you enjoy it, and that's it. um, the nice thing about having the storefront is that it hits the people that are um, taxed to the point where they can't really, or they haven't really practiced planning ahead a lot, and they need to come in right now because I don't have anything, but I
Yep.
want to make a choice that's gonna be good for my fitness and wellness. So that's worked out great, and we're really focusing our energy on developing the store, because it had kind of always been a secondary thing, like our meal
Yeah.
prep and deliveries and orders that are going to the gyms have been our main thing, and that's still a huge part of our business. But we've seen that the advantage of a meal prep company having a storefront is that everything is so immediate now. And
Yes.
even just ordering something ahead for the next day is not convenient at all. I mean, you have the all the opportunities with Amazon Prime and getting things immediate with
Right.
subscription things. So that over the last few weeks actually has been a focus of ours, and how we are going to kind of restructure things with the store and really focus
Cool.
on what we're going to offer for people to come in. But yeah, we can have day of things that you're going to be happy that you came in for, really, because it's going to help you achieve those fitness goals.
Yeah, I love that you have a lot of different options depending on um, how much help someone needs, right? If they want you
Yeah,
to come in and just do a certain meal of the week, or like you said, all their meals, whatever, you can do that. But also, someone like me, I'm the guy that, shoot, I don't have anything packed today, and I need a good healthy meal, and I stop in, like, so you
yeah,
really have something in for everything. And as someone that eats their food a lot, it's delicious, and they always had
nice.
different options. And what he said is really important to me as someone who tries to watch what I eat. I know you're making it from scratch, and I love that it's balanced, right? It's not just like all protein or all
Right.
carb. You have it balanced out. So that's huge. As we wrap up, what advice would you give to people who are watching who know they want to do something else? Maybe it's a business, maybe it's just a career change, right? But they don't have the confidence or maybe the plan to get where they ultimately want to be.
I would say take a hard look at what's driving you to do that, right? And is
Mhm.
it unexplored passion, right, for a skill set you have already have or want to develop that you're passionate about developing? Or are you trying to get away from something that's not really going your way,
Mm.
right? Which it could be a combination, and for me it was,
Yep.
but take a hard look at all those things that are really driving you to spend that mental time on what if, and you know just kind of envisioning creating a vision for what things could be, right?
Yep.
And give yourself some time with it in a place where it isn't because you're frustrated about your current situation, right? And the emotions are there, which emotions drive things and will light a fire, but to get very objective about it
Yeah.
and write things down. For me, I'm a paper and pen guy. I gotta write things out and pros and cons, and then move to okay, what's the first version of this look like, and what would it need to take, like start like taking that energy and even producing something with it. I'm all about I got to produce something. I have to have something more now that I've worked on. And you start snowballing some ideas, and after a while, it's kind of scary, but I tell myself every now and then to kind of look down for a second from that ladder you're climbing, and
Mm.
you've got accumulated all these little steps. And man, 4 years ago when I looked down, it was scary, and now it's even scarier, but I still feel secure in the position I am right now. But to
Yeah.
kind of look back at all those little rungs on the ladder, it's daunting. And but at the same time, I'm super proud of every single one of those. So you have to accumulate these little steps, and I would say don't let the overwhelming feeling of maybe the long-term vision extinguish that fire in your belly
Yeah.
that will get you to start making those little steps.
Yeah. I love that. I love what you said in the beginning too about, ask yourself why you're doing it, right? Because if it's just to get away and there's not a passion, that's not necessarily right either. But to
Yeah.
really break it down, spend some time on it, give it space, is huge advice. And I love what you said at the end there, right? We have a tendency to kind of always look at what's next. I know, like back in the gym when we used to work out, right? You'd hit a clean PR and you immediately want the next one immediately,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Instead of like taking a minute and looking down at the ladder and looking at all of those accomplishments you've had over the past whatever
Yeah.
8 years it's been. Um, I think that's super important for us to all do. So thanks for sharing. What is the best way for people to connect with you if they, want to have some meals and learn more about what you do?
Sure. You can check out our website. It's boxbistro.net. And the website will go through all the different options we have. If you have any questions, at james@boxbistro.net. Happy to answer any questions.
Cool. So you cut out a little bit there on the email. What's the email again?
James@boxbistro.net.
James@boxbistro.net.
Yep.
Awesome.
Got it.
Thanks, man. Well, listen, we're out of time for today. If anyone on the call wants to learn more about real estate, specifically how we use systems, training, and coaching to help agents on our team grow their business, you can send me a DM. We're always happy to talk. Have a great weekend, everyone. And James, thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Rob.